guys, welcome to this week's Black Piano Diaries.
Yay!
Thanks for joining us. This week we are doing a Q&A, aren't we, Chris?
We certainly are. Questions and answers.
Questions and answer time. And we posted on Twitter and on Facebook that we wanted to hear your questions about all things songwriting. So the first one is this is a really popular question. Loads of people ask us this. And a couple of people asked, Annika Visser, one of my dear darling friends, and Sue Clark asked, what comes first when you're writing a song, the lyrics or the tune?
I would say the actual answer to that is the deadline. Because most of the time we have to write to a deadline, and that kind of gets me writing. It differs for me on every song. I think if I read something perhaps out of the Bible or something that inspires me, then that actually might get me to sit at the piano and start writing about it. So in that case it would be lyrics. But most of the time, for me as a musician, it's just playing. It's playing the piano and maybe starting with a few chords. And then sort of, every time I see your face, I know you're never gonna go away. Whatever. I create an atmosphere with the melody. That would be right.
Yeah, sometimes like Chris will start playing something because I don't actually play an instrument, so I like to co-write. I like to write with someone else, and someone will be playing something and I'll just think, what does that sound like? And then often the melody will conjure up a subject, or even just sometimes it's just a word. And then on the flip side of that, sometimes I'll read something like from the Bible or an inspirational quote or something and think that would be a great basis for a song.
It's really helpful to have a subject that you're writing about, or a story that you've heard that has moved you, because that helps you to sort of like put something together and not just randomly try and write something that's cool or whatever. It's really good to have something specific to write about.
So the next question is from Joy Ludford, and she asked, how do you write a tune that's unique? Is it a natural gift or can tips be given?
Gosh, I think sometimes I write some things all the time that I kind of worry that sounds like something else. Even if you are writing a similar melody to something that's already been done, it isn't, that's not a bad thing, because honestly, pop music is never completely unique.
No, it's
anyway,
so true.
If you think you've heard it and you know what it is, then obviously steer clear of it.
Yeah.
But the main thing is to let the song kind of write itself.
I think I would say don't get too hung up on it either, because if you start thinking, does this sound like something else? Well, it probably will sound like something else.
It's all about the atmosphere. I mean, I will keep saying this, but it's all about creating an atmosphere. And you can have an atmosphere on one note. It could be like... And then the next thing you know, you've got this...
That was a bit dramatic.
It was very dramatic.
Okay, next question. Next question is from Hilary Jones, and she asked...
Hilary!
Hi, Hilary.
Hello, Hilary.
If you weren't in music, what would you have done as an alternative?
That would depend on what I would have liked to have done, what would have been my dream job, which would definitely have been a professional golfer. Abyssinia play.
Can I guess?
Go on.
Oh! My guess, is, would you have been a car salesman?
Oh, thanks! I don't see myself as a salesman at all, but I love quality product, and I've always loved BMWs. I'm a massive BMW fan, so it wouldn't be difficult for me to sell BMWs because I love it.
Right.
Because I love them so much.
Was that not going to be your answer?
No, my answer was going to be, I was very interested in being a reporter when I was a kid, and journalism. And I always fancied myself as a sports journalist, preferably talking about golf on television when they get really quiet. And I make it really interesting because I talk about the young man who's sitting next to the green, who's got a bee on his knee, and he's more bothered about the bee that's about to sting him than the putt.
Than the what?
Than the putt that's about to happen. And we've got to be very quiet here, because it's going to be a left to right roll. and it's downhill against the grain.
I think you'd have been good at that. Second to last question.
Yes, can I have a tea first?
Yeah, have a sip of your brew, love. Second to last question.
Oh, glorious. Tetley's
Bit of builders.
make tea bags, make tea.
Is that actually a thing?
Yeah.
Is it?
Mm.
Anyway, moving on. Emma Hughes, my darling cousin, asked, what's the shortest amount of time it's taken to write a song, and what's the longest?
I'll do the shortest now. I love you, I've never loved anyone more. So don't say you don't love me.
Well, that started off great.
I know, and then it went bad. Which is why I should spend a little bit more time on that one.
Or just like leave it there.
Actually, the note, in answer to your question, probably the shortest song I've ever written, actually, was a song called God So Loved the World, which ended up being a big #1 song in the gospel music scene many years ago by an artist called Jackie Velasquez. And I wrote it actually in the middle of the night when I was dying with flu, I know you're going to say man flu, but it was like horrendous. Or without going into detail, I really thought I was dying. It was just horrible. And I started singing the melody of God So Loved the World.
That's amazing.
And it was like a prayer that had been given to me, and I was holding on to it for dear life, thinking, okay, if this is really real, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish.
Yeah.
But I actually wrote the whole thing in my head, and I put my dressing gown on at 4 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't sleep. I came down here and recorded the song, and then went back to bed, was ill for another 2 days, and then fortunately came back and listened to the song that I'd recorded and just kind of tweaked it for a few minutes, and then it was done.
And then the second part of M's question, if I can find it, was how do you get into
the longest. No, she said the shortest and the longest.
Yeah, I forgot about that one, the longest.
So the shortest was God So Loved the World, which was really, and that's when sort of an inspiration or something hits you really quickly. And in my case, it's just like, get it down quick. It's like, I guess a writer who's had an idea in a book, and he just does like scribbles down the notes and that's it. Longest song, normally it doesn't take me too long on my own to finish a song, but if I'm co-writing it, if there's more than 2 writers, it can get really confusing.
Yeah.
So you end up writing a song that's 75% finished, but doesn't have that perfect bridge, or doesn't have that final little tweak that you go,
and you're all getting a little bit tired, and you're like,
yeah, and then you leave it for a few days.
And then,
And I couldn't actually tell you which song that was, but I know that it's taken weeks, sometimes months.
Yeah.
Because you can leave it, you can put a song on one side, and then you revisit it, and actually...
And then sometimes you can completely rewrite it, can't you? And it becomes like a totally different song. Maybe you keep the verse and you change the chorus, or you keep the chorus and you change the rest.
But if you have a great idea and it's just a verse and you don't seem to be able to find the right chorus for it, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just do it, write it, record it, leave it on one side, and it'll find its home.
And then the second half of Emma's question was, how do you get into the writing zone? Just kind of like try and declutter my mind. So obviously we've got a 2.5-year-old boy, so we make sure that he's either in bed or he's being cared for. I like a nice ambient sort of atmosphere for writing.
I have to say that doesn't bother me at all. It's kind of nice to have a bit of ambience, but I definitely don't need it. Because the music and the piano, because Abby doesn't play an instrument, for me, like having the piano in front of me and just putting my fingers on it and being able to come up with something, and even if it's a rhythm, I remember writing the song Don't Underestimate My Love, which was on my 1986 Vision album, and this just began with... Just me just kind of messing about with a rhythm, basically, and that was my atmosphere. That created this funky atmosphere. I was hearing all the instruments. The 2 big influences on me to get me writing is if I've been moved by something, or some news, or someone that's going through something, and I just think I need to sit down,
like having a cause, having a reason to write,
and write something for that person. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if a song is been listened to by millions or just one person. If it can change the life of one person, or just change that moment for one person, it's worth it, isn't it?
Oh man.
And that's what it's all about.
That's a great question, thank you. And the last question is from Vanessa Lloyd, and she asked...
Hi Vanessa.
Hi Vanessa. Chris, you've written some wonderful songs for Cliff Richard. Well, that's very complimentary.
That's very nice of you to
Is
say.
there one you wish you had recorded yourself?
I think most of them, in the early days, actually, I was writing them for me anyway. So I ended up writing and playing my own songs, even though Cliff recorded them as well. So I did a version of Where Do We Go From Here, which was a big hit for Cliff. I did my own version of Little Town. I think probably the one song that I would have really loved to have done my own version was Santa's List, actually, because obviously Cliff had a big hit with Christmas with Save His Day, which was #1, and Little Town was a top 10 hit, and Santa's List got to #5, but wasn't really well known because it came in and went out of the charts.
Why is that? Because I love Santa's List. It's brilliant.
Well, we do it every year, don't we? When we do Christmas concerts, and it's so loved
so much fun
by everyone, and it's got a lot of energy to it. And I felt that in the case of Santa's List, I had a slightly different vision for its production. I'd sort of written it with a little bit more of the young pop band feel to it. So I'd never really expected Cliff to do Santa's List, and it was a shock to me when he did it. But I love it. You know, it's just one of those that I love to perform live. So maybe I'll do it.
Maybe you should do it one day, Chris.
Well, I am going to do the sort of Chris Eaton Christmas album that I've been meaning to do for years and years and years. And
guys, let us know if you want to hear that. That's it. That's the end of our Q&A. That's all your questions.
That's the end of our Q&A.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us this week. And have a great rest of the week.
And we look forward to seeing you next week on Black Piano Diaries.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.